What has been the lesson of the Volkswagen scandal? Was the European Commission aware of emissions breaches? We decided to take a brief look back and speak to the chair of the Committee of Inquiry created in March 2016 on the management of the emissions. Well before the scandal blew up, we had met with experts who told us of the unreliability of tests.
With this small device, we're going to start monitoring and calculating CO2 and fuel consumption in real time. And then we're going to display all that information on a very nice little tablet PC on the dashboard of the car.
The aim of John Keats's experiment is to find out if there's a difference between car CO2 emission values in real driving conditions and the values declared by manufacturers in their catalogues.
The tests that we're conducting today are under normal driving conditions. So we've got the air conditioning on, we've got the fan on lightly. The lights are set so that the driving lights are on, so we're not trying to artificially make it better or worse, we're just giving a realistic figure. The CO2 is the larger of the three on the graphs, and down here you can see the oxides of nitrogen, and on the far right the CO2 production. Now on a very congested motorway or on a country road where there's lots of stop-start traffic, the fuel consumption and the CO2 go up dramatically.
A 20-minute test in the English countryside and on the motorway gave a decisive result.
We just finished that trip and we averaged around about 43 miles per gallon, and that works out to be about 180 to 185 grams of CO2. And that works out to be about 20% higher than the average figure that's produced by the manufacturer.
Until the 18th of September 2015, this gap between the results from laboratory tests, which car manufacturers are obliged to carry out, and those obtained in real driving conditions was accepted, undervalued, or simply ignored. The discovery made by an American NGO that VW had used test rigging software in their diesel cars opened the eyes of the world. But was it really such a new discovery? Weren't some politicians already aware?
It's rightly asked where was the Parliament when we already knew, had indications, but that's a little bit how politics works. I think we do have a lot of MEPs, especially in the Environment Committee, asking questions. Almost every few months they ask questions. But in political life you sometimes need an incident or a crisis, as we have today on the car industry and the fraud. Because that was so shocking that then all of a sudden there was a possibility to have a majority in the Parliament, because you always need a majority in the Parliament to say, okay, stop now.
Given the magnitude of the scandal, the Parliament has secured the necessary majority to create a committee of inquiry. It will have the power to hold hearings and investigate with emissions testing authorities to establish whether car manufacturers have been the beneficiaries of any major cover-up.
I want to make it very clear that the EPP will do its utmost to prevent this committee from becoming what could be termed as a witch hunt, either against industry or against diesel technologies where Europe has a competitive advantage in the world.
The current legislation only requires laboratory tests. Their basis is in an obsolete piece of European legislation called NEDC, the new European driving cycle, which dates back to the 1970s. In Brussels, one NGO is fighting for change. Here are some of the alleged flaws.
For example, they use special lubricants which make the car move better. They disconnect the battery so that it doesn't charge during the test. They test the vehicle at very high temperatures so that it rolls better. They use the engine management system to get ultra-low results just during the test. Another part of the test measures how well the car rolls and moves through the air. So they'd remove the wing mirror. They'd tape up the doors. They'd make the car lighter, maybe by taking out the back window. All of those flexibilities each make 1 or 2%, but together they add up to about a 25% difference between the test results and what drivers can achieve on the road.
Over to the Netherlands, we meet a researcher who has carried out a study on car CO2 emissions for the European Commission. He says some manufacturers take more advantage of leeway than others.
We do know from speaking to people in the field that some manufacturers are more reluctant to use these flexibilities than others. And that in itself already creates false competition. So it would even be in the interest of the manufacturers to do something about these flexibilities, because we see that manufacturers now force each other into using these flexibilities in order to get low CO2 results for vehicles qualifying, for instance, for fiscal incentives.
The car lobby in Europe still wields a lot of power. In October 2015, the Member States and the European Commission granted manufacturers leeway on emissions limits, giving them in fact a considerable period of time to reduce the levels of NOx and other pollutant gases to legal levels. For its part, the Commission has proposed another reform of the emissions tests legislation. The tests will be conducted in real driving conditions on the roads, but starting from 2021 instead of the previously foreseen 2017.
We all know that there's a strong lobby. The inquiry committee will help to underline and help the Commission to be ambitious enough.
At the end of 2015, the European Environment Agency estimated that each year there are 430,000 premature deaths caused by air pollution, to which the automotive sector contributes.
It seems to be